Good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday afternoon here in Perth, in Australia. I'm Karen Frankel, and I know that some people are already online, so that's fantastic that you're waiting for me. And I'm also greeting everybody that is coming onto the video, watching on replay. I'm going to be doing one of my favorite subjects today, and lots of my students will probably roll their eyes when they hear it, because it's a phrase that I say very often to them, and that is shapes of tone. So I'm going to be explaining what does that mean, and as some of you or all of you may have seen the email that I sent out yesterday, it's all about how to make your drawings look more three-dimensional. And I guess as drawers, that's what we all try to do, until we start doing different things and making them more abstract and design, having a design quality, etc., etc. But at the outset, we all want our drawings to look three-dimensional. And it is with shading. It's not really a big secret, but if you don't know, it is. And I'm going to be explaining how to find out what shading to do and how that all works, and giving you some of the pitfalls that we fall into when we are trying to make our drawings look more three-dimensional. And I'm going to pop my head down and see if I can greet some of the people that have come on live. Let's see who is here. Okay, we have got Lulia. Hello, I think that's the first time I've seen you on here. Adriana, welcome. Jasminka, welcome back. That's lovely to see you again. And Stacy, hello. Kicha, I'd love to know how to pronounce your name, if there's any way of showing how to pronounce your name. So welcome on board, and apparently I have got 12 people watching me. Hello, Jojo. This is Jody. Hello, nice to meet you. I think that's the first time you've been on board. And David Drew, lovely to see you. And you found us. That's really lovely. It's fantastic having all of you on board with me. Let me please remind you all that you are very welcome to write comments, of course, but also questions in the comments. Just realize that if you are making a comment from something that I've said, I only see your comments about 10 seconds later. So please be explicit. Don't just answer yes or no, because I won't know what you're talking about, and I'll ask you to explain. I will try and keep my my eye on those comments. I've got my tablet in front of me to see comments that are coming up as they come up. So hopefully I will see them as they come up. Ooh, how am I? Comments and reactions hidden. No, I don't want comments and reactions hidden. I want to be able to see the comments and reactions. So nice to see you, Lois. Good to see you again online. And now I can see somebody that's giving me a message to say hi, Karen. Jeanette, you need to come on to and comment on the video that is in your Facebook room and not on your messages, because I won't be following your messages as we go. Sally Randy, lovely to, or Randall, lovely to have you on board. Well, with such a lovely audience, I think that we should get started. And if you come in, for the people that come in a bit later, they can catch up on replay. Okay, how do you get things looking more three-dimensional? And the first thing that I wanted to reference, and I'm going to swap my cameras over so that you can see what I've got on my desk in front of me. There you go. So what I want to reference is this face that I sent out. Now, some of you won't be aware of this little exercise. Quite recently, I sent out, I did an email campaign, a Facebook ad campaign, and that's where we've got lots of our lovely new visitors from. And they were given an exercise that helped them produce a face like this. And to all intents and purposes, all it is some rectangular dark blocks for the eye, and I did explain that the distance between them is the same as one of those. And if you've ever drawn a portrait, or if you've had lessons from me about portraiture, you'll know that that is one of the proportions of a face. So to keep that space approximately the same as an eye, it's a little way down, and there is another smudge of rectangle shadow, a thin little triangle there, and this tiny little curve of shadow there. And then on half of the oval, we've got another set of shading. So what that actually points out very, very clearly is that even without drawing features, you can end up with a three-dimensional looking face only by putting in shapes of tone. What are shapes of tone? Well, that's a rectangular shape with tone in it. So that's literally what shapes of tone are. I will explain that further when we get on to me drawing some more demonstration for you. What I particularly wanted to show you about this head is that if you actually concentrate on those shading areas, those shapes of tone, even before you've drawn any details, you will begin to establish that it is 3D, and you can literally put your features within there. Okay, you don't even have to have the whites of the eyes white, because basically they're not there in the shadow of the brow. My eyes might be white to you because I've got big lights shining at them, but under ordinary circumstances. So you can see I can put those features on, but if I've established the shadows, so this shadow here is what the nose is casting, and the light is coming from that direction, so the whole side of that head is in shadow. Your upper lip is in shadow, and just underneath your lower lid is also in shadow. So what I'm trying to point out is, if I just take that head a little bit further, we had already established that it was three-dimensional. Because of those lovely shadows that we had. So I'm just doing, I guess, a more advanced version of that head that I gave you all in the beginning, but I didn't have to do much more to it to make it look reasonably more like a head, like a three-dimensional head, because only three-dimensional things cast shadows. So you get a shadow on the side of his head or her head, and you can put some hair on top. So other than telling you that the eyes are an eye width apart, I'm not going to give you any other proportions. That's for my portrait video, but I just wanted to point out how well just those shadows work to enable that face to look a little bit more three-dimensional. So you get the idea, and hopefully those of you who did that exercise, and lots of you did post it online, hopefully you can enjoy seeing that there, seeing where you can take that video. Now, I haven't been looking at my comments because I've been looking at you on my screen, and yes, I've got some more picture freezing now and again, but voice okay. Thanks for that, David. Unfortunately, I think that's to do with the lag in the internet. Jeanette, welcome. You found me. Jalali, thanks for your advice. I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly. Jay, welcome. First exciting topic. I'm glad that you get excited by it. I get very excited by it. So welcome to you all. let's continue. Okay, so I hope that you've got something a little bit more out of that face. The next thing I'm going to just quickly mention, because I have done videos of these before, these are called tonal letters, and I have a specific video all about this tonal letter. And in fact, I send you a PDF with this printed up so that you can cut it out and draw on top of it. And this is one that is actually printed on the printer, and this is one that is colored in. Now I will show you the reason for why I have punched holes in that when we get there. Now I wish that I could see your comments a bit better, but I think we'll manage. Okay, so why have I got this? It's called a tonal letter. In this instance, you can see the numbers 1 to 5, hopefully. We've actually got some in-between shades as well. So shades, tones, sometimes they're called value. All I'm talking about, it's not very complicated. All I'm talking about is how dark or light a specific area or shape is in what you're drawing. So either in your picture or what you are looking at. So very typically when I begin a drawing or when I'm talking to students about it, I don't necessarily draw all of those tones going lighter and lighter and lighter. I often simply draw 5 tones, so 1, 2, 3. So I have a box of 5 tones. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a variety of pencils here. You can pretty much do this with a 2B pencil. You don't need to change your pencil. Hello. Oh, I've got to learn how to pronounce your name. Akinluyi, maybe? Please forgive me with my mispronunciations, but lovely to see somebody else on the video. So, if I quickly, with my 6B pencil, go as dark as I can in tone number 5, and then with my 2B pencil, you can do this all with your 2B pencil. I just happen to have a 6B there. When you are looking at your subjects and when you are looking at your own drawing, you need to bear in mind these different tones. Because what I've been finding with all of the examples that people are posting on the Get Drawing website is most of you are afraid of the dark. And I know that all beginner drawers, but sometimes not only beginner drawers, are afraid of going too dark. And I'm telling you, go dark. Go darker than you think you should, and it probably still won't be dark enough. Now, tone number 1, I'm not going to color in at all, because tone number 1 is going to be our lightest light. Now, I know that in lots of subjects there isn't a white, and the page is white, but you can represent the lightest light, the part of your subject that is the lightest light, without putting any tone there. I'm just realizing that I've been leaning over to get closer to the camera in my enthusiasm, and I've been leaning over. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I've been leaning over my work. Oh, okay, we've got somebody here from Bloberg Strand in the Cape, and it's very cold. It's very, very cold here too. And it's blowing gales. And hello, so that's Annika, and hello to Rita too. Okay, very exciting. We've got 21 people on the video. Okay, I'm going to be referring to whether I'm going to be drawing a number 1 tone, a 3 tone, or a 5 tone. Now I know when we look at things, there are maybe even thousands of different tones, how dark or light something is. But as a drawer, we need to simplify those tones, and you can even simplify them into 3, a dark, a mid-tone, and a light tone, a white. So don't be scared about that. Sometimes we overthink things, and we put in way too much tone. Now, the choice of my the work that I'm going to be using for the demonstration is actually one that I used for one of our other demonstrations, and I'm going to just pop over to Photoshop. And there we are. And in that Photoshop, excuse me while I find where my Photoshop is on my computer. If you half close your eyes at that photograph, can you see, now I don't know whether you can see that whole onion picture or not. Yes, you can. That's lovely. Hello, Janice. Welcome. Come on board. Yes, you can see that. Okay, so often as an artist, as a drawer, I half close my eyes so that I can see that, whatever I'm looking at, that onion and those mushrooms with only simple shapes of tone. I don't particularly want to see all the detail until towards the end of my drawing. So if you half close your eyes and not let in so much light into your eyes, you will be able to see where the real darks and the lights are. And you can do this trick regardless of what you're looking at. Now, somewhere, oh, don't tell me I left it. Goodness, I'm always leaving something somewhere, but I'll just use my cursor. If you look at the cast shadow, so I'm drawing around the shadow that is being cast on the table of that onion. Can you see that? So that's called a cast shadow. It's the shadow of the item that is being cast on the surface that it's sitting on. There's one for the mushroom, that mushroom, and there's one for that mushroom. Okay, I didn't trace around it particularly well, but you can see what I'm talking about. So if I half close my eyes and I try and make a decision on where the darkest dark is in this picture, I would say, and I'm going to change to red so that you can see a bright red coming up there. Hopefully I'm going to change to red. There we go. I would say the darkest dark is that area under the onion. Now I've obliterated that red with my the darkest dark with my painting. So if I just undo it there, you can see how very dark it is. So you need to analyze what you're looking at to try and work out where the lightest light is, where the darkest dark is, and then maybe one or two tones in the middle. So that's where the darkest dark is, underneath that onion. And underneath each mushroom there is also a darkest dark, and I've just removed that because I want to do it more easily here. So that would be where your darkest dark is. That's where your darkest dark is, under that mushroom, and that tiny line is under that mushroom. If I want to look at where the light tones are, so I'm going to change my color again, just so that you can see the difference as I work on it. You know that a mushroom is generally white, these button mushrooms, but if you actually look at these button mushrooms, they're not white, especially if you half close your eyes. There are areas of grey and dark, and where there are shadows, even on a white item, you will see dark. So, in fact, the lightest light is not the whole shadow. The lightest light is only where the light is catching, like on these areas that I am showing you here. So the side of the mushroom there, and on the onion, it's across the top there. Okay, so we know that the light is coming from that angle. And those areas of those items are the lightest light. And where you see this edge of light on that mushroom next to the shadow of the onion, that's when the magic starts to happen. So when you've got a dark dark next to a light light, that's where you really get interest, and that specifically is what shows you that things are three-dimensional. So if I look a bit more at the darkest dark, I think I might actually change my mind and say that there is actually some more dark on this section of the mushroom. So all the way down the side here, that's pretty dark as well. There's a dark smudge there on that mushroom, and if I'm half closing my eyes, the shadow actually goes all the way around there. And on this onion, there's dark shadow there as well. So it may not be quite as dark as the shadow that's being cast on the table, but it is still dark. So that's the first thing that I wanted to show you, is that when you look at your subject, you have to ask yourself a question of, where are my strongest darks, where are my strongest lights, and where are those little shades in between. And that's what I call shapes of tone, and sometimes I actually draw the shape around. So what we're going to do now is we're actually, or I, with you watching, I'm actually going to show you how I go about drawing and looking at that same picture. So that's there in my picture, and I'm going to be drawing the same picture and showing you how I find, well, I've shown you how I find those shapes of tone, but how I put them on my paper. Cheers, I just need to have a drink. Now, I have not been looking at any questions. I will just scoot over to the video, and we've got a few more people on board. Hello, everybody. So I can see that there's no questions just yet, so I will continue with what I'm doing. Okay, so you can see on your screens there, you can see that you've still got your 5 shapes of tone, or your tonal ladder. Now, I did try and print this out before, and my printer shouldn't be running out of ink, but it printed a very, very strange looking view of this picture. So I won't be able to use this as my picture, but the reason I'm showing it to you is because if you are working from a photograph, you can use the tonal value, the tonal ladder that you've already put all your tones on. You can place that over the work, and you can see how dark those individual tones are. Sorry, place it over the photograph so that you can see where the tones are. So I'm looking, as I said, this hasn't printed very well, but I can still see right under the onion there that it's as dark as that's kind of number 4.5. So I've got another picture here that's properly printed of some mandarins off my old mandarin tree. And even though mandarin skins are nice and bright and orange, have a look underneath there. You can really see that this is three-dimensional because of how dark the shadow is under there. And if I put my little view, my tonal ladder, I can see that it's at least as dark as what I've done with my 6B pencil there. So you can look through the holes, but we're also going to be using this on your picture. So instead of using this, I'm going to be using the one on the screen to look at, and I'm going to show you how to go about it. And it's fairly simple in terms of, it's quite like the face that I got you to draw with those shadows. We're actually going to look at the large areas of shadow. Detail is the very, very last thing that you put in. So if I half close my eyes, well, actually, before I half close my eyes, I'm just going to draw that for the onion, and I'm going to draw very simplified. So I'm not getting proportions and things. I'm drawing very simplified items at the moment. I did use this same picture for my demonstration of, oh, I can't remember, getting proportions, I think, or negative shapes, one of those. Okay, So I've quickly, and I can just see on the screen there, you can hardly see what I've drawn, but I've quickly established where these items are, and I'm going to try not to forget the shape of the tone of the shadows, okay? Because they are what makes your item look three-dimensional. So quickly, to digress a little bit, if I do that, that is a two-dimensional circle. That's all it looks like. But if I start adding shading on it, it begins to start looking like a three-dimensional sphere. I've probably done this before. It's my favorite thing to do. And now if I put a cast shadow on there, now it looks three-dimensional. So what's the difference between the two-dimensional circle and what I've just drawn? It's still on a two-dimensional piece of paper, but because of the shading, because of the shadow, it looks like it's three-dimensional, and it looks like I could pick that up. Okay. While I'm on the subject up here, I will make this comment that many beginners, and not only beginners, have a habit of drawing with very strong lines. We kind of draw what we want, and then we come back and we go, oh, and we make it very strong. When you have strong lines like that, it flattens your image and it makes it not look 3D. Okay, so you can see I have put a very hard line now on that, and I'm not sure if you can see that it doesn't look quite as 3D as it did, and I will explain this a little bit further in a while. So strong lines make your items less three-dimensional, but strong shapes of tone, if I put a strong tone behind this sphere so that it matches, so the tone of here, this dark tone, matches the tone of the line that I've put down, you can see that it now goes back to looking three-dimensional. Okay, very important. Many of the drawings that are coming my way on the drawing, on the Get Drawing website, on the Get Drawing Facebook group, thank you so much for sending them through. I love it. If you want them to look more three-dimensional, don't put such strong outlines on, and put a little shading on. Okay, so let's get back to our mushrooms and the onion. Just sharpen my pencil here. Okay, so I got a bit carried away there. I love sharing what I'm doing. So what I'm doing now is I'm drawing the shape of tone that is this shadow here, and here I'm drawing the shape of tone for the mushroom at the top. Now I probably won't finish this whole picture. As usual, when I'm demonstrating, I am demonstrating a concept or a technique, and I'm not drawing as carefully as I normally would if I were producing a work for myself. So please bear that in mind when you look at my work when I'm demonstrating. Okay, so I have drawn the shape of the onion and the shape of the mushrooms, and I've also drawn the shape of the shadow on the table. Now I'm going to half close my eyes and look at the picture, and I'm also going to put the shape of the shadow that's actually on the item. Maybe I'll put that there. So this is the shape of tone that is on that onion, and I am simplifying it. Yes, I know that there's tiny areas that are different, and there's a break in the skin, and there's wrinkles and lines. That's not important for right now. We need to establish the form. Form is the word for three-dimensional things, and shape is the word for two-dimensional things. So this turned from a two-dimensional circle shape to a three-dimensional form. And I've just realized that I have actually got a whole video on just this subject, so I should move along. So that's a shape of tone there. Now on the mushroom itself, if I half close my eyes, this section here, sort of matching with the shadow, is also in shadow, is also a shape of tone, and half of it might be from marks on the mushroom, and half of it might be just from the fact that there is a shadow on this mushroom. So the whole of this side of the stalk is in shadow as well, because the light is coming from that direction. And on this one, oh, it's being overlapped. I didn't even notice that. Make it a bit bigger. On this one, also, this side of the mushroom is dark. So I'm very, very gently drawing the shape of tone. And it's not a particularly white mushroom. It's quite dirty up here as well, but I'm going to be not paying too much attention to that, because I want to pay attention to the shadows that the light and dark make. And can you see that there's a V shape coming in somewhere there like that? Now, can you also notice that I haven't rubbed anything out? So don't be too fussy about your eraser, especially when you're doing exercises. You don't need to rub out at this stage of the game, and sometimes it makes your work look a lot more precious. Now, we've been half an hour, so that's not bad timing. Okay, so I have put a few shapes of tone on there. Now, if you want to treat this as an absolute exercise, what you could literally do is put numbers where your shapes of tone are. So if I look at those the mushrooms, remember we decided that it was really dark under the mushrooms like that, and under the onion here. So if you really want to, you can make yourself a bit of tone by numbers and put some numbers in there. Now, I can hear almost some of you saying, but there's so many different tones there. We want to simplify them just into those 5 tones. Bear with me. You can adjust those tones later, or if you're taking 2 hours to draw this, you can do it much more accurately once you've established the main tones, because it's those tones that are going to help the 3 dimensions and not the tiny, tiny areas of detail. Okay, so I might say, okay, that's a number 4 tone, and that's a number 4 tone, and that's a number 1, and that's a number 3. If you wanted to, you could do that. So I've just put them all there just to show you how you'd go about it, and then you'd start coloring them in. I'm not actually going to follow that process, but it's not a bad exercise to do. What I am going to do, though, is start coloring in. And it doesn't matter if you start with the dark tones. In fact, it's quite good, because then you can say how dark is something compared with the dark that I've already put down. By the way, I use the term coloring in to mean this sort of shading stroke. I call that coloring in, even though I'm not using a color. Okay. Very often when you are doing things like this, and this is, oh, let me rewind that, instead of coming in right in the middle of the thought. The reason I want you to put the darkest dark down so that you can compare to it is sometimes we get caught up in a tiny, tiny area, and I might look at the line around the top of this mushroom, for example, and have a look at it and go, oh, that's really dark, and I put a very strong line round there. But if I've already got a dark area on my picture, I can go, how dark is that compared with an area that I've already got? And if I look at the line there, I'd say it was a 3.5 or 4. So it means that you don't overestimate or underestimate the tones that you're putting down. So always refer to, is it a tone 5, a 3, a 1? How dark is it compared to that? Okay, so I can quickly, now you'll be doing this with much more care. So I might just work on this and not do it to the same level on each of them, because otherwise we'll be here all afternoon. So I've put that tone down of that cast shadow, and the tone should match, should not be lighter than the outline, okay? That's another reason for not putting those strong lines on. Now I'm going to put this tone down. And if I look at that picture, there's a little bit of reflection of the white paper on the mushroom over there, but mostly there is a tone on the mushroom that is very similar to this tone. And if I half close my eyes, that tone blends right into that tone, except for maybe this tiny dark area there. So remember to half close your eyes. Now, I didn't draw that particularly accurately because that tone is going into that mushroom. I'm not particularly worried though, because I've told you this is just a demonstration. And this shadow goes right up the side, but I'm thinking that this shadow is probably a tone 3, or somewhere between a 2 and a 2.5, if I bring that in. And I'm going to make this up here a tone 2. So hopefully that mushroom is beginning to look a little bit more three-dimensional. Now I have with me a kneadable eraser, and I can see that there's a bit of light coming around this mushroom, which is going to help me to show that it is three-dimensional and that it's round like that. So that is why I've rubbed a little bit out, but I still want that edge. So that's actually the edge of the shadow being cast by the stalk. And we do have some darks around there, but I don't want to be too caught up in the actual bits and pieces of the mushroom, because I just want it to be the shading that I'm concentrating on. And it is maybe a tone 2 around here. I like the 3-screen format, it works well. Thank you, Les. Nice to see you on board. Okay, so that tone there, that edge, is much too dark for the edge of the mushroom there. But remember, that is the shadow of the onion. So if I put a dark tone next to it, look how the light area of the mushroom looks like it's now coming forward. Oops, sorry, I keep on putting my head under the camera. My apologies. As I said, I only see it 10 seconds after. Okay, I am not shading in particularly carefully, but you can now see how that mushroom is beginning just a little bit to stand up away from the paper and look a bit three-dimensional. So I showed you how I can use this tonal ladder on my photograph. I guess you could lift it up to the screen if you wanted to, but to check if you've decided that something's a tone 5 and you've colored it in like that and you've gone, I think that's my tone 5. Let's say I think that's my tone 5. If I put my tone 5 over it, I can well and truly see, now I don't know yet whether you can see it. Lois, I will answer your question in a sec. Can you see that it's slightly lighter in there? It's not a 5 tone, and if I move down, that's probably a 3.5 tone in there. So I know that I haven't gone dark enough. But if I put it over here, which is where I said it was going to be number 5, I can see that I'm going dark enough. Right, Lois, if you are working on 5 tones and we can see some in-between tones, do you recommend we go lighter or darker? So if we think it's a 3.5, which way would we go? Okay, good question. At this stage, it doesn't matter. So when you're simplifying, you can go to the 3.5, it's fine, but I want you to understand the principle, I guess. So the more refined your drawing, the more you will come back and you will go, okay, you know, that's a 3.5 instead of a 3, and I've used my kneadable eraser gently to soften it, that sort of thing. I'm actually at this stage, Lois, talking about the principle of seeing broad areas as a simple tone, because we get too complicated. So if you can see it, which is why I'm asking you to half close your eyes. So if you can see a 3.5 with half closed eyes, then draw a 3.5. So it's up to you. Now that you're a drawer, you're an artist, that means you've got artistic license. So you can actually make up your mind whether you want to go darker or whether you want to go lighter. So if it's up against a dark shadow here, for example, and I wanted to show contrast, I might go, I'll go to the 3 instead of the 3.5, or I'll go to the 3. If it's 3.5 and I want to make it either 3 or 4, I'll probably go to 3 because I want greater contrast with the shadow behind. So that's how I would go about it. I hope that's answered your question. So is that that is showing up a mushroom a little bit better than that one? Okay, so your shapes, your mushroom shape and that sort of thing, it does help to get them right, but it is mostly the tones and the tonal difference. Oh, there goes my head in front of the camera again. That is helping you create that detail. Now, I can see there's a stronger line there, and my head is actually screaming at me to put all these bits of dirt in here. And if I half close my eyes, this all blends into that, and that patch of dirt actually just disappears. So right towards the end of my drawing, maybe I can add some finesse and I can show it a little bit to help. So you can make the shapes of tone smaller, make the shapes smaller. And I can add that little, you know, edge there. So that's right at the end that you add these smaller areas. Hello, Hanif. Welcome. I am here watching. That's lovely. We've got 23 people on the video, so that's fantastic, and hopefully we'll get lots of people watching the replay as well. So I'm just refining things. I've noticed that mushroom stalk was probably a little bit wide, and it looks pretty cool standing up in front of this shadow here. So hopefully that mushroom is looking like it is much more 3D than when I started. If I look at my photograph a little bit more carefully, I can, so this is with open eyes and not half closed eyes, I can see that it's a little bit darker in the center, so the light is coming around there and around there, that sort of thing. And I can see that I've done what my brain wanted me to do and put a hard edge on the edge of that mushroom. That mushroom is actually quite light on that area, and it's dark because of where this mushroom is interconnecting. So I might put a bit of shadow there as well. Now, having said that, I just want to demonstrate Earlier I said don't put these strong lines around your items unless you choose to for a particular reason. So don't do it by habit because it makes things look two-dimensional. If I want you to experience this becoming more flat, if I come, I'm going to stuff it up deliberately. Look what happens when I put strong lines on it. Can you now see what I mean by flattening? Now, you may like that way, that design, sort of stylized way of drawing, because it actually looks really attractive when you've got strong lines. But then you need to do it deliberately so that you have a stylized mushroom. If you want it to remain more 3D, that is not going to work for you. So I'm not saying don't ever put strong lines in. I'm saying know what happens when you put strong lines in. Your item becomes less three-dimensional. Okay, I think that is all I needed to say about how to make your work look more three-dimensional. It's about the shading. How do we find the shading? You half close your eyes and you try to decide on where's your darkest dark, where's your lightest light, which is the paper. So even if I go back to my mandarin picture, if I drew that, I would probably leave that light area as the lightest light. And you can see here even the camera reflection or the light reflection on that mandarin, that is pretty white there. And where it's dark, where these leaves are absolutely in the dark shadow of this mandarin underneath there, you don't have to draw all those individual leaves, because when you half close your eyes, they all disappear into the dark. So you can work out, I'm going to leave that lovely piece of leaf light, and that looks great against that dark. But you might have to choose on this side where it's matching a bit more to leave that one lighter so that it stands out in front of that. So that's called artistic license. It's quite a difficult thing to do, to decide how dark or how light, to change what you actually see. But this principle of using that tonal letter and using one on your photographs or on your drawing, that will help you to get your tonal values right. So that's the secret. It's not a very big secret, but that's the secret. And, sorry, the pitfall, don't outline so much, okay? So lots of people drew beautiful flowers. I did a critique of the flowers that came in. I'm just making one up here. Not sure how that's turning out, with something foreshortened and the stamen in the middle, or the middle bit there. You need to make, if you put a shadow on a back petal, this petal, or let's put another one in. That was a funny flower that I drew. This petal will stand out in front of that, that petal will stand out in front of that, and I've already put my outlines on too hard. So for the best reality, you should not be seeing any lines surrounding these shapes of tone like I did there. So if we go back here, we can't see any lines. We can only see dark against light, against dark, against more dark. And it is these shapes of tone that come together to create the illusion of 3 dimensions. So, thanks very much for joining me this afternoon. Sorry to ask, what pencil am I using? Thank you, that's a very, very good question. Don't be sorry at all. Mostly I draw with a 2B pencil. So all of this was done with a 2B pencil. And the reason is I'm pretty lazy. I don't like having a whole set of drawing pencils and then drawing with an H to get light and a 6B to go dark and that. Sometimes I do, but I can go pretty dark with a 2B. So it's nearly as dark as that one there, which was 5B. And if I hold it at the back and I draw very, very lightly, I can go extremely lightly. So my 2B pencil is a very, very good standard to have. I'm looking for my HB pencil to show you that you can't get dark enough with an HB pencil. I think I just dropped it on the floor. Yep, there's my HB. So if I color in with my HB, you can see that I can't go nearly as dark as I need to. But that's just an opinion of mine. So if you want to draw with all different pencils, that's fantastic. This isn't right or wrong. It's just a way of doing it. So all of this was done with a 2B pencil. I think that's it. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Don't forget that if you are a Get Drawing member, thanks, Annika. If you are a Get Drawing member, on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, so an hour later than this video, I have a critique session and a challenge for you to do the following week. And it will be lovely if you can join me. That is exclusive for the Get Drawing people. So if you are not on the Get Drawing exclusive Facebook group, then you can ask to join that. If you have an email registered with me. Otherwise, I will see you on Friday next week. If you only came in halfway, you can catch this video again on Facebook, but I also do edit it a little bit and I upload that to YouTube so you can watch it as often as you like. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Get drawing. See you all next week. Bye-bye.